through the lot, now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep feeling it.
What is popping, people? It's G, and we are back in the building. Guys, you know what to do. Before we even dive into any of this, I'm going to wait 5 seconds just for you to like this video. Thank you. It only takes you a second to like the video. Please make sure you are doing so. Please make sure you share this out, obviously, to your peoples, and please make sure if you are brand new to the channel, please subscribe, man. We've got some more content, we've got some more tactics loading, you know, as the season obviously is starting to build up. We're going to be taking a deeper look into tactics. I'm going to be taking a look into tactics of other teams as well. Big up my guy Ends, so we're going to be taking a look into all of that kind of stuff. But obviously today we're here to talk about Marc Guehi with another scout watch. Now, interesting one. Liverpool have had, apparently, we've had reported interest in the Crystal Palace defender, formerly of Chelsea, formerly of Swansea City. It's a weird one. It is a weird one. Even when I was doing the research behind this guy and, you know, just trying to figure out a few bits and bobs, it's weird because I always look at like certain players, especially when you're trying to do research for them as well, you know, in terms of or in regards to whether or not they fit your team. He's a tricky one. He is a tricky one. I don't know if he does fit the team. He might do. He may do. Like Klopp might look at this guy and think, yeah, this is the one that we kind of need, you know, to potentially battle with Ibu, you know, in the team. He can play all across the back four in terms of in the 3 centre-back positions. He can play in all of them, left centre-back in the central side and right-sided centre-back. So he does offer you that level of versatility. He is a player who is kind of comfortable defending out wide. He's good at bringing the ball out. He has good on-ball ability. So if he was to play that right centre-back role, I wouldn't be too fussed, to be honest with you. But it's just more, yeah, it's a tricky one. It is a tricky one. Whether or not we would go in for someone low, you know, like Guehi. Again, you know, you guys let me know in the comments. What do you think in regards to Marc Guehi? Is he someone, you know, that you think we should, you know, ultimately go for? You know, this is him in the under-17s World Cup, won it obviously with England. It's so funny because he doesn't really look like he's aged a day in these kind of photos when you look at them, but you could tell obviously now he's grown into a really, you know, mature individual. You know, he's really filled out into the kind of physique that we see, you know, from him today. So yeah, like I mentioned, it is a tricky one. So I do want you guys to kind of let me know, because as much as I'm trying to just give you a little bit of a background statistical information into this guy, just off your first impressions, would you want us to sign someone like a Marc Guehi, or do you think that maybe we should be looking in different kind of areas? I don't want to discredit him and I don't want to be disingenuous, because I do like the player and he does have certain qualities that I think would be fantastic in this team, you know, in terms of it's the stuff that we get onto Henderson for. It's the intangibles of the leadership qualities. He is fantastic at organizing a back line. You know, what he does for Crystal Palace, amazing. You know, he's able to organize that back line really well. We saw the back end of the season for Crystal Palace under Roy Hodgson, you know, how they were able to kind of function as a unit, as a team, you know, and he was kind of a big part of that, obviously, alongside your Esse's, your Elise's, your Zaha's, you know, all of the good attacking players. You need that defensive stability, and to be honest with you, he does offer Crystal Palace that. So, you know, it is one of those kind of things. It is one of those kind of things. Looking at his heat map, mostly played on that left-sided centre back, you know, for Crystal Palace. So maybe that's a position potentially, you know, that Jurgen Klopp is looking at and thinking to himself, well, if it's a case of I need cover on that left-sided centre-back position. And this is why I always mention to people as well, when it does come to these kind of things, where I'm like, you got to be so careful, because obviously we're all looking at Inacios, you know, Levi Colwills and all of these kind of things, which again, absolutely fine. I'm not saying that, you know, we can't necessarily look at those kind of, you know, those kind of things. But at the same time, maybe Klopp isn't even potentially looking at these type of players. Like, we have no idea. Like, I generally have no idea when it does come to those kind of things, because I feel like we at Liverpool, the way that Liverpool are, and the way that we kind of move, in terms of, the, what I say, the type of players that we may or may not go for, and stuff like that. Sometimes it's just out of the blue. You get? I mean, it is generally just out of the blue. So if you're thinking that it's just out of the blue, like players like the Zoboslais and all that kind of stuff, again, I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? Slyly, I hear it. I do generally hear it. In terms of the type of player that we might go for, that the fan base might not necessarily be just automatically thinking about. And I feel like Guehi seems like one of those type of players that we just go for him out random, and you're just like, oh, all right, but you're not mad. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're not generally mad at the fact that you're going for him, but it's one of those things. It's one of those things, man. But let's take a look. Obviously, stats wise, defensive, not really that great. But again, you got to take into context the team that he's playing for. Obviously, in the Premier League, playing for Crystal Palace, a team who weren't really doing that well, especially under Patrick Vieira, and obviously got a lot better towards the end of the season, as I mentioned. So again, these I have to take into a little bit of context in regards to that. But these are the stats; these are exactly what we see. But you can see, obviously, straight away the one big key from him, or two of them, passes attempted at the 70th percentile, 59.69. Per 90 minutes, but it's a successful take-ons. He's got 0.38, which ranks him pretty high, amongst the other centre backs. Again, this is playing for Crystal Palace. So to see something like that, I do feel like Klopp would look at something like that. Again, he's got the physical attributes that Klopp absolutely loves. So that would be my thing. Aerially, though, I don't know if he's really, I don't know. I feel like it's a bit iffy when it does to come to like aerial duels and stuff like that. I feel like that might be an area potentially he would need to work on. But, as I mentioned, man, Klopp might see something completely different. Now, onto his style of play. To begin with his defensive output, and he typically positions himself adequately to deal with nearby threats, which gives him a solid base to work with. Very attentive and constantly checking his nearby surroundings. This ensures he knows where to be situated in relation to his opponents and his teammates. Continues to say, it is also worth pointing out he typically likes to get touch tight so he can unsettle opponents, ensure they can't freely turn, and not to allow them any separation to cleanly execute their actions. In doing so, this impedes their ability to gather momentum and keeps the pressure on, be it getting his arms across on an opponent to stifle their run and stuff like that. Again, that's just more looking purely at the way he does defend, in terms of when he does come up against certain players, certain teams, and just because of the way he actually likes defending. I can see he's someone who's quite methodical with his thinking. I can see he is a player who has thought a lot about what is probably the best way to come up against, especially these Premier League, attackers, forwards, false nines, whatever it is that you want to call them. I can already see that, and again, they speak very, very highly of someone like a Marc Guehi, even from when he was in the Chelsea academy coming through, then obviously went to Swansea. And then once he's gotten himself over to Swansea, that's when I was kind of looking at him and thinking to myself, okay, well, we've now got a player here, who's starting to mature a little bit. He's getting himself that game time. Just need to see whether he can make that step up. For Swansea is really, really good. Can he make that step up straight away? He's gone into that Crystal Palace team, and you can just see it. He's got the leadership qualities. He's got the actual footballing ability. He's a decent defender. Again, I'm saying he's a decent defender. All I'm just looking at is whether or not I feel he'd be able to fit a Jurgen Klopp team. But then I'm thinking about, even as I'm doing this video, physically, that those type of attributes, and I know Jurgen Klopp loves the physical attributes. He fits that. Fast, strong. It's going to be hard to beat someone like that, even if you are playing a high line. He's quick, man. Do you know what I mean? He's not someone you want to come up against. He's just like the Konate. If I'm being totally honest with you, maybe Konate is a bit faster, so to speak, especially over long distances. But Marc Guehi, again, I'm starting to warm to him a little bit. Handily being pressured well. It's important how composed he remains and doesn't panic under duress to still coherently use the ball, backing himself to beat opponents with feints, sharp turns, or alterations in pace and direction, and using his strength to withstand pressure. The two-footed Guehi boasts an array of possibilities to outfox foes and unbalance their defensive. Let's read that last bit there. Their defensive structures. So again, he is someone when he is on ball. You know, I mean, maybe again, I'm just trying to figure out why Liverpool would potentially have interest in someone like him. When I'm hearing all of this stuff, you're checking out his style of play, looking at the heat map as well over on that left hand side. Are we all thinking immediately the Levi Colwells again? You know, all the hipster names, but then we're not necessarily looking at players who might actually make sense for that Liverpool setup. Marc Guehi is kind of sounding a little bit like someone who might potentially, you know, be able to do that. If we're looking here, this is obviously just a still here from him playing against Burnley for Crystal Palace a couple of seasons back when Burnley obviously was still in the Premier League. And it's just really just to show that he is a player who likes to bring, you know, the ball out from the back, and he's comfortable, you know, in doing so. And you can see here, you know, pushing up the field and pushing into that midfield position. Again, it does tell me that, you know, he is someone that you'd want to have on your team in that kind of regards, if that's what you're looking for from your wide centre backs, because I don't think he'd be someone who play central, to be honest with you. I'd much rather, if we sign someone like him, I'd much rather he would play wide right and then Kanate play central instead, because I feel like he'd be a lot more comfortable, because he's so comfortable bringing the ball out. I just feel like he'd be more comfortable defending in those areas, but also playing in those kind of areas, and he's got a decent type of pass on him. Meanwhile, in terms of his passing, Guehi moves the ball smoothly and accurately on both feet. Key not to overcomplicate things for the most part, a neat and tidy passer who operates with an element of caution, so not to recklessly turn the ball over. He recirculates possession and gets the ball into the feet of Palace's more damage offensive weapons. So, you know, he is going to be someone who he can play these kind of balls. You can see here the ball over the top. This is against Aston Villa. That ball over the top to, I think it's Elise on that right-hand side to be able to run into. Obviously, then to put the ball into the box for the attackers. He can do those kind of balls, but only if he sees that pass. Only if he knows he's able to actually get that pass off. That's when he will do, you know, those kind of riskier passes. Otherwise, you've watched his game anyway. For those who've watched Crystal Palace, I always feel like he's someone who he just keeps the ball moving. He just keeps it ticking, keeps it ticking, keeps it ticking. He might not always want to try the Hail Mary passes kind of thing, but he will try and just keep the ball ticking. As it mentioned there about recirculating possession. That's how I kind of look at him, as someone who does that quite a lot, plays it safe. And sometimes you do actually just need that. Again, if you don't really necessarily have the capabilities and context, the team that he's playing for, maybe the way that they're set up and the way that they want to play and stuff like that, it's going to be difficult for you to be able to just constantly keep pulling off those kind of passes, when the reality is you don't maybe need to. And sometimes if you can't, then just keep the ball, keep possession. Let's give the ball to the guys who can do that. The Trent Alexander-Arnolds, like the Soboslais, the McAllisters. Let's give the ball to those guys. Van Dijks, if they can do it, why are you going to try it, you know, to potentially do all of that? And lastly, just take a look, understanding where he needs to be positioned in build-up. Guehi accordingly helps form overloads, positional superiority, and offers himself as an option to bypass the initial press. Again, I'm guessing that's just more the build-up play from the back when the goalkeeper does have the ball. Again, being comfortable to push out into those wide areas, as I mentioned before. That's why someone like him, I wouldn't mind him whether he be wide left or wide right. Again, I feel like maybe we're potentially even sleeping on someone like a Marc Guehi. But, you know, let me know, obviously, what you guys think in the comment section. Do you think he's going to make that step up in his game? Is Liverpool the step up, potentially? Could he go to a Manchester United instead? Could he go to a... Who else could he be? Tottenham, as an example. That might be a club, potentially. Obviously, I don't know what I know they're looking at Tapsoba. And I know we were potentially looking at him as well, but could Marc Guehi, you know, make that step up over there? I don't really know. You know, I'm 50-50 with this one. You could probably tell, you know, just throughout the video, you know, the way that I'm speaking about him. It's not to disrespect him. I do think he is a very good player. I just don't know whether, you know, he's the right player for Liverpool, and I would probably think other clubs might be best served getting someone like him, or potentially just staying, you know, at Crystal Palace. But let me know what you guys obviously think in the comment section below. Marc Guehi, can the Palace centre back make the step up?